Good day, my fellow Grenadians. I want you to listen carefully because what I'm about to say to you will shock you to the core. The honest Grenadian ambition and aspiration for a hospital and proper medical care is being taken advantage of. And a very evil, wicked, and wretched act of deception is being committed against the Grenadian people. One thing in this life that we have to be careful about is to not allow our emotion to supersede or get ahead of our intellect, our reasoning, and our critical thinking. And I see with this Polaris issue that many of you have gotten very emotional about it, and I understand. I have in the past, over 9 months ago, has brought to attention and have tried to add some clarity to this issue. But at this stage, I feel compelled to say what I have to say right now. Now, I am going to break this down for you how this works. Now, they're saying that they're building a 250-bed hospital. And of course, with an average cost of $1 million per bed, that is how they came up with the price of $250 million for the construction of a hospital. But I want you to understand that is just raw construction, and that is for a typical standard case. The Polaris situation is not a typical standard case because first and foremost, the site is a floodplain. So the intricacies of construction and architecture are entirely different. Now let's do some numbers, and I know you all know arithmetic very well. Now generally, the architectural costs can be expressed as a percentage of the cost of construction. In this case, we can use 8% of the cost of construction, and that is on the higher end. So for this particular $250 million construction cost project, the architectural services, complete architectural services, should be $20 million. That is 20 million US dollars. Now I want you to also understand that the cost of preliminary conceptual plans, master site planning, and feasibility of the site is generally done for 1% of the total architectural costs. That means, in this case, for Polaris, the initial preliminary conceptual plan estimates would be 1% of that 20 million. That will be 200,000 US dollars. So for roughly $500,000 EC dollars, you should be able to get done a master site plan and the conceptual plans, plus the feasibility study of the site and so forth. Okay? So for $500,000 EC dollars, that will provide you with all you need for the preliminary concept plans. So the current administration has said to us that they have spent close to 35 million EC dollars thus far. So the question is, for 35 million EC dollars, which is 3/4 of the total architectural costs, how do you end up with only 1% of the work being done in the conceptual plans? That is the question that Grenadians need to seriously ask. So the total cost of design architectural services is roughly 54 million EC dollars. And thus far, the current administration has said they've spent 35 million EC dollars on this Polaris project. And all that was presented at the Polaris Town Hall meeting was some conceptual plans and a master site plan. And as I just told you, that represents 1% of the work being done. And that master site plan and conceptual plan should cost a total of $500,000 EC dollars. But they have said to you that they have spent 35 million EC dollars. So I think, my fellow Grenadians, that Miss Andrea Sembernard and Mr. Dolan has some serious explaining to do to the Grenadian people. And I know a lot of people felt rubbed the wrong way when I said this was a Ponzi scheme. And this was an economy of sorts created by the current administration to feed the upper echelon of the organization. But that is becoming more and more apparent. And sad to say, the opposition has not done a very good job of clarifying and explaining this Polaris hoax to the Grenadian people. You guys, in some respects, I believe, have dropped the ball on this. Because at last minute now, you're trying to come and explain to the Grenadian people about what is going on. And I see Dr. Keith Mitchell has done a relatively good job in terms of explaining that such a high debt to GDP ratio will only cause much problem. This is something that I have spoken about from day one. Okay? Ultimately, to get this done to staff and equip would be a minimum of 750 million US dollars, not the initial USD of 250 million to get it built. Now again, I would reiterate that $750 million represents 3/4 of the GDP of Grenada. And basic fundamental investing says that in your investing, you should diversify. You should not put all your eggs, so to speak, in one basket. So the charlatans have done it again. Okay? These people are very smart. They have turned this issue into us against them. They've turned this issue into those who are for Polaris and healthcare and those who are against Polaris and healthcare. And that's not exactly the divide. Because I think most people would agree that Grenada does need improved healthcare. What the problem is, and the problem I have, is that it must be done in a structured, disciplined way. And it must be done with all stakeholders in play and involved. POW is not involved. That's interesting. And then you have relatively 2 people running this project of that magnitude. Then sadly, at the town hall meeting, the Minister of Health was not present. As I have said before, other than incapacitation, okay, there is no reason why the health minister should not have been there. Okay? On top of that, where was the CTO? This is a project that involves a lot of construction and engineering. A matter of fact, this may not be a typical foundation system, especially seeing that it's a floodplain. They might have to use a piling system to get down to bedrock. Why wasn't he present? Where was that input from the Grenada technical side, from the engineering side, from the construction side? That's pretty interesting. So they have smartly pit the Grenadian people against each other, okay? And if you say that you disagree with what is being done, guess what? Oh, you don't like progress, you're against Polaris. Pretty smart. So while you're busy fighting each other, it seems that the cookie jar of this Polaris project, somebody or some bodies are running away with the cookie jar. Now, this is despicable, it is shameful, and it's unconscionable. Now, there are architects and there are engineers in Grenada. I would like to believe that. And there are people who understands how this process functions. But you guys sit there in your homeland and you do not do your civic duty. You do not explain to the Grenadian people what is involved here. But I also understand you're afraid of victimization. I mean, look what happened. A simple event we were trying to hold in a shop in Beaulieu, okay? And those guys at the shop were intimidated, okay? Then we have certain people who are trying to run for us. They're being intimidated. So I'm not surprised. I understand what's going on. But Bad things happen when good people fail to act. And for all that you guys been hailing all these other parties, why have they not stepped up to the plate and shed light onto this situation? There's an opportunity for them to prove to us how proficient they are in infrastructure. We already realize and we know that the current administration is incompetent in infrastructure. But these other parties, where are the architects, where are the engineers, where are the project managers within their ranks, who should have stepped up to the plate and come to the Grenadian people and explain to them exactly what's happening. So what are we going to do? How are you going to build a society? It's built by ingenuity. Okay? Construction is a major part of building a society. So what are you going to do? You're going to replace some incompetence by another set of infrastructural incompetence? Or you're going to replace a set of paper-pushing lawyers by another set of paper-pushing lawyers who understand nothing about construction and infrastructure. And I wonder if they probably can do a proper contract for construction. Now it's shocking and shameful in some respects that to see what is happening with this project. So again, I am calling on, and Grenadian people at large should be demanding that we know what happened to the next 34 million. Let's give them $1 million out of the 35 million, okay, to get all of this done, conceptual plans and so on. The question is, what happened to the 34 million EC dollars that was additionally spent? Where did it go? And I am telling you, and as Grenadians, if you care about your country, you should demand to know, where did that 34 million EC dollars go? And this is exactly why I'm extremely suspicious about this project. Because it seems like they're not even waiting till the project gets going, or midway through the project, or the end of the project, to sort of take care of themselves, so to speak. Okay? They're trying to make sure that they make some money on this at the upfront. So that tells me that they do not believe in the project, and they do not believe that they might possibly get a second term. So they want to ensure that whatever money has to be made on this project by the upper echelon is done on the front end. Just to reiterate, this is very simple arithmetic. Generally, the full cost of architectural services can be expressed as a percentage of the cost of construction. In this case, they say the cost of construction is $250 million. So, at 8% for total architectural services, that would mean the entire cost of architectural services for this Polaris $250 million project would be 20 million USD, roughly 54 million EC. But this administration has told us thus far they have spent 35 million EC, which is at 3/4 of the total cost of architectural services. And the only thing that they have presented in the town hall meeting is a master site plan with conceptual drawings, which, as I have said, can be done for 1% of that 8% of the cost of construction, which means for 200,000 US dollars, roughly $500,000 EC dollars, all of this should have been done. So again, the question is, let's give them $1 million out of the 35 million spent. The question is, what happened to the other $34 million? Grenadians, again, I reiterate, you have to demand an explanation as to what happened to that 34 million EC dollars. We at the GSDP, the Grenada Social Democratic Party, is not going to sit by idly while Grenada, in some respects, is rapaciously advantaged. I am calling on the CFO, or Chief Financial Officer, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Cornwall, to explain to us what happened to that 34 million issue. Explain to the Grenadian people how that money was spent in the preliminary stages of Polaris. We see ourselves as defenders of the people of Grenada.